You're listening to Short Inspirations from Ralph. It's time to start living, part 3. As mentioned in an earlier podcast in this series, the Chinese Emperor Qian Shi Huang, 2,500 years ago, was fixated at the age of 13 with fear and death that he spent the rest of his life in trying to prepare for the afterlife, with great armies of terracotta warriors, which he buried in the ground to accompany him in the next life. Now, all of us in our human fallen state can retreat into caves. Caves of bereavement, for example, are natural, or even times of anxiety, taking time out to recharge. But our problem would be staying in there. And some people can hide from the world for years. You see, eventually that cave becomes a prison, and that prison can become a grave. Moses was called to bring God's people out of Egypt, and he felt the stirring of that call when he saw an Egyptian beating an Israelite, and he got involved and accidentally killed the Egyptian, and he was cast out, so to speak, in the wilderness. And there he lived amongst the rocks and caves as a shepherd. And the scripture says that he spent 40 years hidden away. He had resolved in his mind, I've tried and I've failed, and I'm not going to try anymore. Once bitten, twice shy. And he gave up on the call. 40 years of wilderness. He became resigned to his less than ordinary life. And we too can settle for much, much less than the dream that says, I can do this. But if you read Moses' story, before he perished, I guess, in his self-imposed cave, God lit up a burning bush in Exodus 3. God sent a fire, and that fire lit up his spirit. But it took a bit of breaking out, if you like, for Moses. And in Exodus 3:11, he said, Who am I that I should do this? The cave that he was in had stopped being a physical environment or cave. It had become part of him. And my message to you in this series is to say, if something rings true in what I'm saying about your life, then I would greatly encourage you to come out of the cave. Perhaps you've been there too long. Sadness, fear, sorrow, even an unforgiving spirit. Even if there've been legitimate issues that sent you in there, you are called to greater and higher things than to isolate yourself and live less than what God has planned for your life. It's never too late to step out of your cave. Now is a good time. You see, we're not meant to live in retreat and fear. You see, it's time to start living again. So how do we do this? How do we emerge back into life again, into light from darkness? Well, caves are emptied when Jesus shows up. I'll say that again. Caves are emptied when Jesus shows up. In John 11, a man called Lazarus was bound and trussed up like a mummy. He'd been dead for 4 days. He'd been put in a cave, and they'd put a stone in front of the cave. But Jesus walked up to the mouth of the cave, and after the stone had been rolled away, he says, Lazarus, come forth. He commanded him to come out of the cave. You see, it's time for you to throw away the grave clothes and to start living again. Yes, you'll need to make a decision to do this. Yes, you'll need people to help in this, or groups or others around you that can help. Because Jesus said to the disciples, loose him and let him go. So they took off the grave clothes for him, which is a wee bit of a type of other people helping us. You see, people, it's absolutely clear that God has called you to a free life. That's what our starting scripture was in Galatians. He's calling you to come forth. You can put your own name in there. There is life out there. There is light and colour and meaning and purpose. See, a wee while later after this episode, another man was crucified and put into a tomb, a cave, but rose again. The cave couldn't hold him. It couldn't keep him entombed. And of course his name is Jesus. And the thing that gives Christianity its power is that Jesus wouldn't stay in his cave. God bless you today.